Your own understanding, truth under Babylon's empiricism. What up? On here real quick. Um, just hopped out of the rain. It is raining right now, so I might be a little wet or whatever. It don't matter. I'm not here for a fashion show. So anyway, so I was having a conversation with a friend of mine and brought up a good point as we were talking. We got on the subject of just people, humans, biochemistry, and things like that, and energy. And what was relative was when we started to talk about femininity and just the type of things that femininity has to endure within this condition here. And we got on the subject of entertainment and songs and start talking about different songs. And then Justify My Love came up by Madonna. Justify My Love. Very important statement, actually. So when you're talking about the human biochemistry, sexual energy is a big part of the human experience. Just like walking and talking, communicating, sexual energy is one of the most important aspects of the human condition. So, our individual sexuality is very important. Our collective sexual understanding is even more important. If you don't understand sexuality and the energy that sexuality or the sexual experience holds, then you're in for a problem, a big one. Just like you have different aspects of life, meaning you have sports, you have entertainment, you have the business, you have just social interactions, you have just different little nuances of just the practices of human beings coming together, as a means to mediate a purpose or whatever the case may be. So when it comes to sexuality, this also needs to be put into perspective. Sexual energy also needs to be put into perspective. So when it comes to different genders, there are only two. When it comes to different genders here, the primary forces which govern the human condition, masculinity and femininity, these representatives, men and women, they interact and they have their own individual sexual capacity. Sexual energetic capacity. They have their own individual capacities, just like someone has their own individual intellectual capacity, their own individual physical capacity. All these things are relevant and must be considered. So in the realm of sex, every all aspects of the sexual practice, sexual behavior with human beings must be considered. And also the underlying principle behind the energy which governs this practice must be considered and also must be understood and applied. So when it comes to, once again, when it comes to the interaction of human beings, men and women, we'll take men and women because it's the original and most pure sexual interaction between the participants within the human condition. So men and women, that natural magnetism that's there, you have to be ready. There's different sexual aptitudes, different sexual abilities, different sexual attributes. There's a lot of different things that comes along with someone's sexual toolbox. And when humans get together and decide they want to play show and tell and exchange these tools and put them into practice and create, the experience with that interaction, someone's toolbox might not be sufficient enough to work with or build a proper structure of a sexual outcome as a result of that lack in toolage when it comes to that experience. So with this, you have to consider the condition for humanity, meaning if you have a force, an energy so great within the condition, within the biochemistry of human beings, you must take responsibility for the practical action and interaction between people when it comes to this sexual energy. You cannot say, oh, just because you are a person who has a capacity for sex doesn't mean you can be out here having sex with anybody just because you have the capacity for sex, because your capacity for sex might not be someone else's capacity for sex. So therefore that interaction in itself might start off okay but end up not, up to par for one or both of the parties. So what does that mean? That means this inconsistency in sexual experience happens more than once, more than twice, all over the world. It just happens. So therefore you have an irresponsible sexual behavior landscape when it comes to, just how we behave and how we structure our sexual behavior here. So relationships become competitions, it becomes topsy-turvy, it becomes a whole commercial process, it becomes everything but what it should be, which is, a divine sensual mediation of energy between two. It doesn't become that anymore. Now it's let's roll the dice and see what we come up with, see if we can work with it. And if it doesn't work, let's ridicule one another and move on to the next. And then when that doesn't work, we'll ridicule each other again and then move on to the next. Or we'll undermine what may happen to somebody as a result of irresponsible sexual interaction. And then you get the little nuances of mental illness, and then other things transpire just because we call ourselves adults, but we act like children when it comes to something that's rated high, a high level within our sexual output, or I'm sorry, our biochemical output. Sexual energy is a big factor, and if we're treating it very irresponsibly, then you're going to get sex crimes. You're going to get these mentally ill people who look at pedophilia as a viable way of sexual behavior. You're going to see like all these, just different sexual travesties when it comes to domestication, domestic situations. You're going to look at all these different nuances of unwanted sexual behavior within relationships and marriage and whatever the case may be, because we are doing this very irresponsibly. It is a crime to manipulate someone's energy to the point where you hinder their ability to perform or to be who they are, unimpeded by any kind of emotional stress due to our irresponsible behavior out here in life. That is ridiculous at best. It's obvious that they don't want any sexual education, or they don't want any advancements in the understanding of sexual energy and what it means to the biochemical pool of the human condition here. It is very important to categorize sexual behavior or sexual aptitude or abilities between people, because one person might not be good for another person over the chain of moments that transpire after the honeymoon phase. It's not just sex. This is an expression. It's like talking. It's like relating. It's like empathy. Sex is a physical manifestation of the connection between two people. And if you treat that irresponsibly and you're having sex and hurting people as opposed to giving people the release that was meant from that bond, from that connection, if you're hurting people instead, you're causing pain, then you're being irresponsible sexually. You're being sexually irresponsible. And at some point, that should be a moral crime in some areas, in some spaces. It should be a moral crime only because sexual irresponsibility can lead to mental illness. Now, if you care about people, if that's the idea here, to care about one another, then we would take this into account and we would understand that what we are doing is totally topsy-turvy. It's being done purposefully. We facilitate our sexual behaviors like this as per a, unfortunately, a rogue cultural ideology that has nothing to do with a cohesive, coherent uh, human conditional practice or human conditional being or state of being. This is not what they want. They want you to be irresponsible in all kinds of ways, whether it be financially, whether it just be intellectually, whether it be sexually. They want you to be irresponsible so they can come in, swoop down with the, the problem, reaction, solution protocols, the order out of chaos, and basically just keep control over people. Just using the very little small nuances of what we do out here that mean very big things and big implications when it comes to applications of these things. Like, people need to really, really pay more attention to themselves and to others and what it means to be human.